What is going on, Metaverse? Animositas here with Annie Knows, and a clip from the latest episode of our Gaming on the Block podcast. The full episode is linked in the description below, so make sure to check it out. So with no further ado, let's see what Annie and my co-host know about Web3 gaming.
If I come to you and say, hey, man, I've got this great game. It's this FPS that, I love. You're going to absolutely kill this thing. By the way, if you want, you can buy a gun and it's only $500. What do you think?
Well, I believe there has to be some, it has to be reasonable, right? Like, first of all, I've said this before, and we've talked a little bit about this topic before, and I don't think there's anything wrong with pre-selling or selling NFTs before you build the game. I think it allows for an opportunity where you invite your community even more to have a say in what you're actually building. So let's say I buy an NFT and then I get to vote on certain things, should we have this in game? Would you guys rather see this or that? And but it has to be reasonable, and I would not invest in anything if you, Annie, as not a game developer, came to me and said, I'm building this awesome NFT game, who would you want to buy? I would not do that. It has to be, I believe, if you're doing that, I believe you have to, I think it's only morally right to do it if you have great background in building games in the past. If you're a big company that have built, Ubisoft, for example, they're too big, I suppose, but any other game developer company, if that have built successful games in the past, I know they can deliver. And then I don't buy essentially funding it a bit in order to get them where they want to be with this game. And I maybe have a say, or I get pre-access or whatever to the game before anybody else. I believe it allows for even more opportunity where you invite your community. I get to have a say. I don't see anything wrong with it, but I do believe we'll disagree here. We'll see. What do you think, TSG?
Actually, I want to throw it to Annie first, if that's cool. I want to see what Annie thinks, and then I'll give my take. But what's your take? I actually think we're all going to agree on this. Actually, okay. Maybe the specifics differently, but yeah, Annie, go.
Yeah. So there's a couple elements here. One is the price point. So let's maybe talk about that first, because I think
break it all down.
What brings up the best initial question here, which is it just a matter of it's too expensive? And if someone was pre-selling me $20 NFTs and that's essentially my pass to be able to play the game, is there anything wrong with that if the game isn't fully built yet? Versus the $500 or $1,000 NFT that I've got to buy to be able to play. And obviously, so I'm a firm believer in personal responsibility, and so I tend to be pretty okay with any company using any sort of funding mechanism as long as they're fully transparent about it. This is the number one thing for me is caveat emptor, buyer beware. If someone's selling you $1,000 NFT that's going to let you play the game, for them for the next decade, and you want to buy it, absolutely, the company should have the right to sell it for $1,000. I don't see anything morally wrong with that, as long as they're actually have the capability of building out what they're promising.
Yeah.
And they're transparent in what you're buying and when it's going to be able to be used. Now, that's 100%. A slippery slope because game development is notoriously difficult to forecast timing on. Yeah. And, it's also an area where oftentimes you see major failures of titles. So there's inherent risk to that. And, as a player, for me, it's no different than kickstarting a project. That there's some inherent risk, but it's got to be transparent. So let's talk about that price point issue. My take on it is you can't sell something consistently for orders of magnitude more than a typical game costs today. So if I try to sell something for $500 and a normal game of that genre is going to cost $50, you can't do that to more than a handful of people before the number of gamers / investors in the world that are willing to buy it goes to zero. You essentially have a very small pool of people to sell it to at that point. And that's true for any game. If they sold access to a title for $1,000, they'd have some people that would pay it. but you'd be talking about hundreds or maybe thousands of people, not millions of people. There's a big difference there. And so I think that it's no different than if a normal Web 2 company tried to take that approach. But I think if you actually have a game that wants to have any kind of mass adoption or broad player base, you've got to then price it appropriately. And that means you're talking tens of dollars, not hundreds or thousands of dollars.
I'm glad you enjoyed that clip, so give me a like or subscribe, and make sure you check out the entirety of the episode on I Will Crypto's channel. The link is in the description below.